Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Apple AirPods Pro. Now, the AirPods Pro came out back in November, and they are very much branded as the Pro version of the popular AirPods. This means that they don't replace the original AirPods, they simply sit alongside them in the lineup. If you're wondering whether you should upgrade your AirPods or which ones you should pick up, then I've also made a comparison video. But without further ado, let's start the review. So first let's talk about price, because these are quite pricey. The AirPods Pro cost around £250. If you're in the US, then it costs you $250, which means you actually get a much better deal because our exchange rate over here is so bad. This puts the AirPods Pro towards the more expensive end of the wireless earbud market, even when you take into account the fact that they've got noise cancelling built in. In terms of design, they actually look pretty similar to Apple's original AirPods when you're wearing them. They do, however, have slightly shorter stems. As an overall, when you're not wearing them, they are slightly bigger, but this is because they are in-ear earphones rather than just earphones. This means that the tip of the device goes into your ear canal. Personally, I really like the design, and I do appreciate having the slightly shorter stem. In terms of colour, they are completely white apart from the silver at the bottom and the black grills. When you pick them up, they come in this nice small box, and you get a few things with it. So you get some instructions, you get a Lightning to USB-C cable, and then you get the AirPods themselves. If you're hoping for Apple stickers, I'm sorry, there just aren't any in there. They come with 3 different size tips in the box. Now, the thing to say about these is that they aren't standard tips. This means that if you lose them, you're going to have to buy some more directly from Apple. And this is done by going through the support rather than going to the Apple store. If you order a pair, so some medium ones for example, this comes out at about £12. However, these tips do secure on quite well, and so I think the odds of you losing them are pretty slim. In terms of wearing them, they're really comfortable to wear, and actually they don't move around at all, which is particularly good if you want to use them for exercising. If you're wondering which size tip is the right one for you, then if you go into the settings for the AirPod Pro when you're wearing them, there's something to work out which one is the right size. They will play you a piece of music and then tell you whether it's got a good fit or not. This is a feature that I haven't come across before with headphones, and it's actually a really nice extra to have. As I said, it also comes with a charging case. This case is slightly larger than the one that comes with the original AirPods, but it can still fit in that funny coin part of your jeans. The case itself has nice rounded edges, a light on the front to show you the status, and then it's got a lightning port on the bottom for charging, but it's also wireless charging enabled. This is particularly good because you can just leave it on your wireless charging stand. The AirPods fit into the case nice and easily thanks to the magnets, and they just click into place. This is another one of those things that just works really well. And while we're talking about spec, we should probably also talk about battery life. Now, with a single charge on normal mode, you can get up to 5 hours out of these from one charge. If you switch on noise cancelling or transparency mode, then you go down to 4.5 hours, and then you also get 3.5 hours talk time. This essentially means if you're using a microphone as well, you're going to get worse battery than if you're just listening to music on off mode. And by off mode, I mean the mode without transparency or noise cancelling. The case that comes with the AirPods that charges them will let you get up to 24 hours listening time in total, or 18 hours talk time if you're making phone calls. 5 minutes in the case will give your AirPods 1 hour of listening time. This is particularly good if you're going off on long journeys or you're travelling a lot. Now, I've been using these pretty solidly, and actually these estimations from Apple are pretty spot on. Battery life is really impressive, and you don't really have to worry about putting them down to charge somewhere all the time. You can of course also see the battery status on your iPhone. So let's talk more about some of those modes that are built in and setting it up. If you're an Apple user, then setting these up is the easiest thing ever. You simply open them near your phone and you're prompted to connect. Thanks to iCloud, they then appear on all your other Apple products ready to use straight away. When you take them out of the case, they pair automatically with the last device that you use them with, providing it's in range, and it just works well every time. It's worth saying that they do of course pair via Bluetooth if you use Android as well, but this isn't something I've tested. The AirPods themselves, when you're using them, have got 3 modes. They've got off mode, transparency mode, and noise cancelling. So let's talk about each of those. Off mode means that they act like a normal pair of headphones. Simple as that. You put them in and you play some music. Transparency mode is probably the most innovative thing and probably my favourite mode. One of the things that I've never really liked about in-ear headphones is that you end up with this feeling that you're shut out from the world because they basically block your ear canals. This often means that you get a better quality of sound from in-ears compared to just normal earphones. However, it also means you have no idea what's going on around you. There are times when this is great, especially if you're travelling, but there's also times, especially if you're doing something like running outside, where actually you want to hear the traffic around you for emergencies. Transparency mode fixes this by basically using microphones on the outside of the headphones to relay the sound from outside to you. This means that you know what's happening and you can still listen to really good sounding music. This also gets rid of some of that kind of vacuum feel you get with in-ear headphones, and it makes speaking on the phone much more comfortable because you're not sounding really deep and confused and worried that you're shouting. What I'd like to see them do is automatically go into transparency mode when you're making a phone call, but this isn't something Apple's implemented. Finally, the third mode is noise cancelling mode. This basically blocks out outside noise whether you're listening to music or not. This is generally pretty good and a really good feature to have, especially if you're travelling a lot. Now, I gave this feature a couple of extreme tests. The first test I gave it was on a noisy train where I wasn't listening to any audio, but I was trying to read and there was like a child playing on an iPhone with loud music. And so I just put them in and I turned on noise cancelling without any music. And they didn't cancel out 100% of the background noise, but they did cancel out the noise from that phone and probably about 80% of the background noise. And so they made it much easier to concentrate on the book I was trying to read. The second test was whilst I was walking past a building site with some loud drilling on, and at this point I was listening to some music. Of course, the drilling kind of permeated through the earphones, and so I just switched on noise cancelling, and again, the drilling just went. I've been super impressed by the modes on these. They just work really well, especially considering they're in-ear headphones and not a pair of over-ears. Apple have done a really good job with these features. But of course, the most important thing about any pair of headphones is less the features and more about what they sound like. So what do the AirPods Pro sound like? Now, sound is always a bit of a subjective thing and it's always going to depend on the music that you listen to, but in my opinion these sound really good and they're easily the best pair of earphones that I've ever owned. They give you a really good mix of high and low frequencies, and I've found myself hearing parts of songs that I didn't know existed. If you're particularly into music, you can quite clearly pick out the different parts of, say, a drum kit with these, and there's a real clarity about the sound. If I'm comparing them to my previous generation AirPods, then I'd say they're probably a little bit bassier, but also pick up some of the high end a bit better as well. In terms of loudness, they're also pretty loud, although about the same as the previous generation of AirPods. This means that for me, anything above 3/4 volume is just a little bit too loud. But it does mean if you've got a quiet podcast, you can really crank up the volume. If you want to make a call when you're using them, then I've also found them to be really loud and clear when making calls. And the microphone works really well, which means the person at the other end can hear you nice and clearly. As I said before, I find that they need to be in transparency mode for a call to be comfortable, because otherwise you just feel like you're in a vacuum and it's really difficult to talk. Now, as we're coming to the end of this review, there's a few other features we should talk about really quickly. Number one, they have Hey Siri built in, which is nice, but it's not really something I've used much. Two, the tap function on the old AirPods, whereby you tap one of them and the music would stop or Siri would start, has gone. This has been replaced with controls on the tips that you squeeze. Now, this squeezing feature is actually much easier to use, and there's an indent so you know where to squeeze. You also get a bit of taptic feedback when you press them, which is really helpful just for knowing that you've done something right. But it also means there's a few extra things they can do. So one quick press plays or pauses or answers a phone call, 2 presses goes to the next track, 3 presses goes back a track, and then you can do a long press on each one, which you can customize in your Bluetooth settings. This means you can choose for the right one to activate Siri on a long press and the left one to flick through those noise cancelling modes. The third extra thing we should talk about is that they're IPX4 sweat and water resistant. This makes them particularly good for exercising, although certainly don't take them swimming. So all in all, what is my verdict on the Apple AirPods Pro? So these might be an incredibly expensive piece of technology, but actually I think they're really worth it. They sound incredible, they've got great battery life, the noise cancellation and transparency mode work really well, and they're just a really easy pair of headphones to use. They're also incredibly comfortable to wear, and that's something I don't normally find with in-ear headphones. And this is something Apple have clearly thought through, because there's even that mode in the settings I talked about earlier to help you find the right size tip for your ear size. Essentially, as we'd expect with Apple, there's a lot of things with these that Apple have just really thought through. There's even a feature where you can have Siri read your new messages when they come through to your earphones. The other thing people always ask when it comes to audio reviews is all around latency. Latency is basically the gap between your phone or your device sending out the signal and your earphones receiving it. What I found with these is that there's no latency that I actually notice. This means you can quite comfortably sit and watch a YouTube video with them without the audio being out of sync. So that's the AirPods Pro. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you've got any questions, do stick them below and I will try and answer those questions. Do give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it and consider liking my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.